Hmm. All right. What's up, Internet? Yes, John. It was supposed to start 3 minutes ago, but hey, life happens. Real world things happen. AKA, you got to make a cup of coffee and get prepared. But boy, was this not on my docket for today? I'll tell you that much. So, welcome everyone. Um, yeah, apocalyptic subclasses, which seems to be heavily tied to Dark Sun, or at least Dark Sun inspired, which is something I would have never thought would have been a thing, but that's where we're at today. Your boy can't catch a break. And I try. I had so much shit to do, and between work and other stuff. And you know what? Apparently, it's Unearthed Arcana time. So we got 4 new subclasses in this Unearthed Arcana. We're gonna go over it in just a sec. Um, yeah, let's go ahead and yeah, I guess we'll just dive in, right? You know what? No sense uh beating around the bush here. Besides, I have my home D&D game to run. My wife's gonna go pick up the kids and then come back from daycare and then or camp rather. And then it'll be time for me to run that game before I play in the Vecna game later today. So we don't have a lot of time is my point. So anyway, if you were to go over to D&D Beyond, you would go to Sources, Unearthed Arcana, which will take you here. You can click this Apocalyptic Subclasses, which will take you here. And you can see it will have 4 new subclasses: Druid, the Circle of Preservation, Fighter, Gladiator, Sorcerer, Defiled Sorcery, and Warlock, Sorcerer-king Patron. Go ahead and hit download. And then here we are. So let's go ahead and dive right into the Circle of Preservation Druid. All right, safeguard nature and heal the world. Your circle spells are Bless, Lesser Restoration, Protection from Poison, Sanctuary, Beacon of Hope, Plant Growth, Aura of Life, Death Ward, Greater Restoration, and Hollow. So very much a druid focused on, like, I almost thought it was a cleric originally. It's very much focused on the sort of healing aspects of this, which we haven't really seen a specific healer druid before. All druids can heal, but this may be one that's a little bit more coded to be a direct healer. So let's see. Level 3, you get Preserved Land. As a bonus action, you can expend a use of your wild shape to fill a 15-foot cube originating from a point on the ground you can see within 120 feet to fill with revitalizing energy. It lasts for a minute or until you have the incapacitating condition or are more than 120 feet away from the cube or you die. Whenever a creature, including you, ends its turn within said cube, then one of the following things happens. The creature gains temporary hit points equal to a D4 plus your druid level. You end one effect on the creature, causing you to have the frightened or poisoned condition. In addition, non-magical vegetation native to the region sprouts inside the cube. As a bonus action, on subsequent turns, you can move the cube up to 30 feet as long as it's still within 120 feet of you. So, hey, you know what? This is a bonus action, and it could be, I mean, at the start, right, it's a D4 plus 3 temporary hit points to any creature that ends their turn in there. So that does mean that those characters or those players can go out of the cube, attack, do whatever they need to do, and then come back and sit into the cube to end their turn there to get that little bit of extra boost. A D4 feels a little low, but it is plus your druid level, which is nice at later on, but all right. And then Student of Preservation at level 3. When you cast a druid spell, you can cast it without any material components, right? Without material components, except material components that are consumed by the spell or have a cost. Additionally, whenever you cast a druid spell that requires a material component that is consumed by the spell, there's a 10% chance that the component isn't consumed as part of the casting. And you can use an artisan tools as your spell casting, or you gain proficiency rather in one type of artisan's tools. Okay, that one's kind of a throwaway ability there. The material component one's kind of a throwaway, but either way, whatever. Improved preservation at level 6. While inside the cube created by your preserved land, you and your allies gain a bonus to Constitution saving throws equal to your Wisdom modifier. Okay, so we got a little bit of a boost to our level 3 ability there, given that bonus to Constitution saving throws. And then Reject Desecrators. Whenever the cube created by your preserved land enters an enemy space, and whenever an enemy enters said cube, they must make a Wisdom saving throw. On a failure, they're going to take 2d10 radiant damage and have their speed cut in half. They can only do this once per turn, but obviously, you can move the cube on your turn, so you could move it through enemy spaces to have them all take damage, or if you put it in such a place that the enemies have to move through it, they'll take damage that way. Facilitated Restoration at level 10. You can cast Lesser Restoration or Greater Restoration without expending a spell slot or requiring spell components. You do this Wisdom modifier times per long rest. That's actually pretty solid. Freebie Greater or Lesser Restoration, up to Wisdom modifier times per day. That's pretty solid, and you don't have to worry about the components side of it either. I like that a lot. And then lastly, our final ability for our druid here is Sacrosanct Land. The size of the cube created by your preserved land increases to a 30-foot cube, so it doubles in size from a 15-foot cube to a 30-foot cube. In addition, when a creature you can see in the area of your preserved land is hit by an attack roll, you can take a reaction to have that attack's damage against the creature. So, 30-foot cube that you can position all around and just tag and deal damage to enemies. And then if, somebody's inside there and they get hit by an attack roll, you can reduce the damage that they take by half. So it has some decent offensive and defensive capabilities. I don't think this is bad. It's not my favorite druid. But I think Circle of the Land druid might, and for me personally, might outshine this one. But it is still solid, right? It's got good spell lists. It's got good versatility and access to unique, capabilities here. So I'm a fan, but like I said, just not my personal favorite. Let's go ahead and jump down to the Gladiator Fighter. Now, this is also something that I would have said you probably would have just used Champion Fighter if you wanted to be a Gladiator, maybe Battlemaster Fighter. But I'm curious to see how the Gladiator differs from base Fighter or anything else. Have some coffee here in a second. All right, Brutality at level 3. Once per turn, when you hit a creature with an attack roll using a melee weapon, you can add one of the following Brutality effects. Getting very Mortal Kombat vibes here. Brutality. You can do this a number of times equal to your Charisma modifier. Okay, so a Charisma-based fighter. We like that. And you regain all uses when you finish a short or long rest. Bleed. You can activate the Sap Mastery property in addition to a different Mastery property you're using with that weapon, and that target takes extra damage equal to your Charisma modifier. Okay, that is huge. Okay, it is once per turn. Okay, so it's not as huge as I thought because you are hard capped at Charisma modifier times per short or long rest. It is short or long rest, so consider that. But this means you can have whatever effect you're using and then also trigger sap on them. Remember, sap is they have disadvantage on the next attack roll they make. So this could be pushing them back, knocking them prone, whatever kind of setup you have to do that. And then in addition, you can do sap. And then in addition to that, just deal extra damage equal to your Charisma modifier. So not as crazy as I thought because you are limited in the number of uses that you have. But you're getting dual effects from this, which could have a lot of very powerful abilities here. Bluff. You can activate the Vex Mastery property in addition to a different Mastery property you're using with that weapon, and you have advantage on the next saving throw you make before the end of your next turn. This one also extremely powerful. Vex being if you hit an enemy with this weapon, the next attack you make with it will have advantage. This is obviously huge for certain classes, but like the capability to be able to self-initiate yourself with advantage, especially since as a fighter, you don't have access to something like reckless attack. This is a way you can pretty consistently, again, limited by your charisma modifier, get advantage on attack rolls by yourself. And again, a little bit of utility in the advantage against saving throws till before the end of your next turn. And then lastly, Stumble. You can activate the Topple Mastery property in addition to a different mastery property. And on its next turn, the target can only take an action or a bonus action, not both. So Stumble is Topple plus like a almost pseudo slow effect. So obviously the one I would think of would be Topple and Push, whereas you could hit somebody with something that's going to knock them back 10 feet and then also knock them prone. And then on top of that, also limit their action economy on a subsequent turn. That is a very powerful string of abilities that you could link together. And this is just your level 3 capability here. Level 3, also you get Combat Theatrics. Athletic Flair. Whenever you make a Dexterity, Acrobatics, or Strength Athletics check, you gain a bonus equal to your Charisma modifier. Okay, just a solid extra bonus there. And then bonus proficiency, you get your proficiency in a choice of acrobatics, athletics, deception, intimidation, or performance. Okay, this is actually a very strong level 3 capability. The concept of combining these, getting extra damage, dual mastery properties triggering at the same time is really only limited by the type of weapon you use and the creativity you have with, activating these different abilities here. And then again, Combat Theatrics is also, it's just kind of like a fun passive thing that's always on. All right, Flourish Parry at level 7. When an enemy hits you with a melee attack, you can use your reaction to add your Charisma modifier to your AC, potentially causing the attack to miss. So that's period. And as far as I can tell thus far, that's unlimited. So you let's say you happen to be lucky enough to be a fighter with a 20 Charisma. You could be basically having your own innate non-magical version of shield forever. But I think there's subsequent tweaks to it, like Flourish Counter. If this reaction causes the attack to miss, you can retaliate with a powerful counterattack as part of the same reaction. Make an attack roll with a melee weapon against the triggering creature. If this attack hits, you can use one of your brutality effects without expending a usage of that feature. Once this counterattack hits, you can't use this feature until you make another you can't use this feature to make another counterattack until you finish a long rest. You can also restore your use of this counterattack by expending a use of Second Wind. Okay, so this is also very good. So let's talk about this, because you can do the parry forever, from what I can tell here. This reaction to add your Charisma modifier to your AC. This does not seem to have a hard cap. From what I'm reading here, you can do this as much as you want. You can the Flourish Counter, the counterattack, that is once per long rest, unless you use a Second Wind to recharge it. So the kind of basically inborn kind of version of shield is forever. But if you do want to use your counterattack, if the shield essentially makes it so that they miss, you get to make an attack back against them. And if it hits, you get to pull off one of your brutality effects here without having to expend its feature. And again, we won't get to do that again in the counterattack aspect of it until you finish a long rest or expend a Second Wind. And then we get bolder brutalities. Okay, we get extra options for our brutality feature, which will also synergize nicely with our level 7 feature we just discussed. Rive. You can activate the Cleave mastery property in addition to a different mastery property you're using with that weapon. And you could add your ability modifier to the damage of the additional attack made. Oh, okay. So normally Cleave, right, is if you hit somebody, you can make another attack kind of against an adjacent creature. But the downside of Cleave is you don't add your ability modifier to that attack roll. Well, Rive allows you to do that. And again, this is in addition to a different mastery property you're already activating on the main target that you're hitting. Rush, you can activate the push mastery property in addition to a different mastery property, and you can immediately move up to your speed, whole speed, without provoking attacks of opportunity. Now, it also doesn't say you have to move up to the enemy, so you could do let's say we had a topple weapon and we hit him with rush, we push him back, we knock him prone, and then we still have an access to our full movement. Free access to our full movement on top of our regular normal movement and other things. A lot of battlefield control and maneuverability here. And then lastly, stagger. You can activate the slow mastery property in addition. This is cutting movement speed. In addition to a different mastery property, and the target has disadvantage on the next saving throw it makes before the end of your next turn, potentially allowing you to really queue up one of your allies who's a spellcaster to do a lot of damage there. Brutal Resurgence. Whenever you use your second wind to regain hit points, you regain an expended use of Brutality. You also regain an expended use of Brutality whenever you use your Action Surge. I really like this. This is kind of nice. So it's giving you synergy here. That second wind is just going to restore it as well as Action Surge. Those are just nice to have abilities there. And then lastly, Mutilate at level 18. When you hit a bloodied creature, so a creature with less than half hit points, with an attack roll, you can attempt to critically injure it. The target must make a con save against your charisma modifier-based DC. And if it fails, if it takes the attack action, it can only make one attack. And the target's speed is halved, and it has a -2 penalty to its AC. This effect lasts until that target regains hit points. Once a target fails this, you can't do so again until you finish a long rest. So this is a once per day capability, but if they do fail that save, you're effectively hitting them with a martial version of slow on top of any other effects that you're doing. So I really like this. This is pretty solid. I don't know if it will beat out something like Champion Fighter for me, because honestly, I'm really enjoying playing a Champion Fighter in 2024. Just because of, I mean, it's a lot of it's carried by the strength of base fighter, but I am enjoying it. So, yeah, I don't know. I like it a lot. I think it could be interesting to play, but I don't know if it's when I'd be jumping to play right away. I do feel like you can do not necessarily all of this, but similar capabilities with maneuvers in the Battle Master, but either way. Rush on counterattack means that as a reaction, I could use shield plus attack with 2 mastery and move on the enemy turn. Yeah, I guess you're right. There's nothing saying you can't use. Yeah, right, so I could flurry attack, rush, get extra movement, get the push. There's a lot of interesting synergies between how all of these abilities flow very well together, which I like. Okay. Defiled Sorcery Sorcerer. Siphon life into catastrophic spells. Okay. Defile and empower. I guess we should probably start with the spells, right? Blindness, deafness, inflict wounds, ray of enfeeblement, ray of sickness. Bestow curse, vampiric touch, blight, hallucinatory terrain, anti-life shell, and contagion. Obviously, we're very much into like a corruption, poison vibe. Defile and empower at level 3. Once per turn, when you roll damage for a spell you cast using a spell slot, you can siphon your energy into the spell and empower it. Okay. Roll a number of your unexpended hit dice up to a number equal to half the level of the spell slot expended, round up, minimum of 1 die, and add the total rolled to 1 damage roll of the spell. Those hit point dice are considered expended. Okay. So let's say we are level 5. Let's make ourselves level 6 to make it easy math. We got to cast a fireball. Okay. We want to use Defile and Empower. So we're going to roll a number of unexpected hit dice up to half. So we happen to be level 6, which means It is a 3 hit dice we could spend because half of 6 is 3. Which, as again, as a sorcerer, our hit die is a d6, so we could essentially add on 3 additional d6 onto that casting of fireball, or if it was a singular target, we could add it to that. But obviously, this benefits a big AoE, and then you expend those hit dice as normal. However, it looks like there's more stuff to it. Instead of drawing on your own life force when you use this feature, you can try to steal life from another creature you can see within 30 feet of yourself. That creature makes a Constitution saving throw against your spell save DC. Creatures that have immunity to exhaustion automatically succeed. On a failed save, in place of rolling your own hit dice, roll a number of the creature's unexpended hit dice up to a number equal to half the level of spell slot expended. You then add that total to 1 damage roll of a spell, and those hit points are expended for that creature. Once a creature fails its save against lifesteal, you can't use lifesteal again until you finish a long rest, unless you spend 3 sorcery points. Wow! Huh. So again, what I'm noticing is sort of a trend from what we saw before, is you have a cool thing you can do all the time, and then like a juiced up, powered up version of it that is limited in use. Like we saw that previously with the counter parry and then the counter attack. Well, you can once per turn use Defile and Empower as much as you want. Now, granted, your limitation there is going to be your number of hit dice because you obviously only have so many. But the fact that you can just choose to do that, you could just maybe tack on 1 extra d6 if you want every turn to add a little bit more damage. Lifesteal, however, you can only do once per turn, or once per long rest, rather, unless you use blow 3 sorcery points to cast it again, or use it again. But you can attempt to steal the hit die from an enemy creature. And the reason why that's important, less because, yeah, obviously, if you're not having your own hit dice, you can't heal on a short rest. But, like, what if the monster whose hit dice you're stealing has a d12 hit die? Now you're rolling 3d12 in our fireball example from earlier, as opposed to 3d6. And only 3 sorcery points to recharge it. At level 6, you get Corrupted Caster. When you take a bonus action to transform sorcery points into a spell slot, one of your innate sorcerer abilities, you can wreathe your body in a protective web of defiling energy. Roll a number of d6 equal to the level of spell slot created. So you still get to do the thing where you turn sorcery points into a spell slot, and then in the process, roll d6 equal to the number of the level of the spell slot you just created. You gain temporary hit points equal to that many d6. So let's say you created a level 3 spell. You get to roll 3d6 and give yourself that many temporary hit points. If a creature hits you with a melee attack roll while you have said temporary hit points, they're going to take necrotic or poison damage equal to your charisma modifier. So you're kind of getting, and this is another one of these options where you're getting a cool thing on something you're already doing. This is giving me very like Pathfinder vibes where we're condensing the action economy. But I'm going to go through, do my innate thing that I can always do to give myself an extra spell slot by spending some sorcery points. I do that. I get extra temporary hit points on top of that for free. And I also get basically my own kind of innate version of Armor of Agathis for this, that if I get hit while this is happening, I'm going to deal damage to them. And that's all free. That's not limited in the number of uses I can do that per day. It's obviously hard limited by the number of sorcery points I have to do conversions. But I can do this every time if I were to choose to do that. And on top of all of that, damage dealt by your sorcerer spells and sorcerer features ignore resistance to necrotic and poison damage, potentially saving you the opportunity to not have to take elemental adept, necrotic, or poison. You just kind of have those innately about you once you hit level 6. Yes, Hiroshi, this is from Wizards of the Coast. This is on D&D Beyond right now. These are the apocalyptic subclasses that they have released on D&D Beyond. It is very much Dark Sun, Rob Martinez. That's kind of the vibes. But nowhere in any of the documentation does it state Dark Sun specifically, but everybody can kind of read between the lines that it is very Dark Sun coded. But yeah, this level 6 ability is it's just pure gravy, right? If now granted the first of all, you're always going to have the ignore resistance to necrotic and poison damage. That's not tied to anything. You just have that, which is awesome. And I don't know how often you're going to be converting your sorcery points into spell slots, but if you ever do decide to do that, it's going to give you temp HP and also that Armor of Agathis kind of effect while that's up, which is pretty cool. Level 14 is Withering Aura. Whenever you use your innate sorcery feature, that's the feature you get from like level 2 or level 1 that lets you either have advantage on spell attack rolls or boost the DC of your innate sorcery kind of abilities there. An aura emanates from you in a 15-foot emanation. I think innate sorcery is a 1-minute duration. So while that's emanating, you get the following effects. Defiling Shroud. When an enemy within the aura hits you with an attack roll, you can reduce that attack's damage against you. The reduction equals your charisma modifier. So just flat out reducing the damage by your charisma modifier as long as they're hitting you with an attack roll. Or Essence Siphon. When an enemy dies within your aura, you regain a D4 sorcery points. Once you use this, you can't regain sorcery points in this way until you use innate sorcery again. Yet again, we are getting something for almost nothing. If we're gonna use innate sorcery to do the thing that it does, which is advantage on spell attack rolls or a boost to your spell save DC, which is something you should be doing as a sorcerer, especially, in a 2024 sorcerer. This is just ways to make yourself better. If you do the thing you're probably already going to do, you now have a reactionary, not even reactionary, it just happens, a damage reduction mechanic when you use this. That's charisma modifier damage reduction. Potentially even more powerful if you have some sort of innate damage resistance. Let's say they have a fire attack and you happen to be like a tiefling, so you're resistant to fire damage, which means you're going to take half damage anyway. You're going to take that, whatever that final number is, and reduce it by your charisma modifier. And then again, a potential way to regain sorcery points innately if a creature dies within that 15-foot emanation of yourself. Again, that is once per instance of innate sorcery. If you do something to cast innate sorcery again, down the line, you'll have that ability back. And lastly, Superior Defiler, level 18. You have immunity to the poison and exhaustion conditions. That's always on. And the size of your Withering Aura, the thing we just got at level 14, which was a 15-foot emanation, now extends to a 30-foot emanation. And in addition, enemies can't regain hit points while inside your aura. Again, the aura that you're setting up just to boost your own abilities now is going to be causing damage reduction for you and then issues for your enemy. I am very much liking this kind of new concept of synergizing things well. So I like that quite a bit. We don't yet know. Yeah, we don't know any of the books beyond this year. We know the Forgotten Realms books, and we know the Eberron books. But, we don't know where any of these things are going to be. The past few Unearthed Arcanas have kind of been up in the air. We had the horror, the arcane, and the apocalyptic Unearthed Arcanas. I do feel like we're getting one a month, which is pretty great, and it does feel like we're getting a lot of interesting options. The Scion as well, trying out stuff that they kind of shelved for a while. And I know people will tell me that you're foolish to think this, but, either way, the way it seems is with a new sort of regime at Wizards of the Coast that we're trying new things. Now, again, that may not be the case. These things may have been already in the works for years, and they're just slow rolling them out. But to me, kind of feels like we got a new team in there. They're willing to try and experiment with some new stuff, and we're benefiting from that on our end. Okay. Sorcerer-king, patron, warlock. So, we're going to get some spells. First of all, it says psionic casting here. When you cast a spell from the Sorcerer-king spells table, you can do so without verbal or material components except material components that are consumed by the spell or that have a cost specified in the spell. Okay. Command, compel, duel, hold person, mind spike, wrathful smite, fear, sending, compulsion, staggering smite, dominate person, synaptic static. Those are all very solid spells. And I can't be 100% certain, but a large portion of those also do scale with higher level spell slots, which is good for you since you're always eventually at a point going to be casting from 5th level. Tyrant's Herald at level 3. Proficiency in an intimidation skill. If you don't already have it, you also have expertise in it. You can cast command as a bonus action on your turn without expending a spell slot. Charisma modifier times prolonged rest. Hey, command's a great spell. Potentially up to 5 uses of it for free as a bonus action. Not a bad use. All right, level 6. Decisive Edict. Your patron's power surges through you. Whenever you cast a spell using Pact Magic, your main feature, you can cause profane power to erupt in a 30-foot emanation originating from you. For each creature you can see within the emanation, choose one of the following effects. That creature has advantage on attack rolls until the end of its next turn. The creature must make a wisdom saving throw or be frightened until the end of its next turn. So again, this is you casting a Pact Magic spell, period, and then an emanation around you. You can either boost somebody up to have advantage until the end of its next turn, or try to instill fear in an enemy. Again, something you're going to be already doing is casting a spell with Pact Magic. This is adding additional options on there. But it is once per short or long rest. You can use this feature. Also regain this usage when you utilize Magical Cunning. Level 10, Vindictive Rebuke. You learn to rebuff those who challenge you or the might of your patron. When an enemy hits you with an attack roll, you can take a reaction to force the enemy to reroll said d20, and they must use the new roll. If this reaction turns the attack roll into a miss, the triggering creature takes psychic damage equal to your warlock level. This will be 10 as of you getting this ability. And this is charisma modifier times prolonged rest. So again, potentially another defensive survivability mechanic where you're turning a potential hit into a miss. And then if it does turn it into a miss, you have the opportunity to deal some extra damage to them. Again, hard limited with charisma modifier times prolonged rest. And lastly, Absolute Tyranny at level 14. Whenever you cast command, you can target one additional creature within the spell's range. Additionally, a creature frightened by you automatically fails its saving throw against the command you cast. So again, we get the opportunity here with, Tyrant's Herald, to cast command as a bonus action without expending a spell slot. Well, if we were to look up here to Absolute Tyranny, whenever we cast it, we can pick one additional creature. So, yeah, we've got uses of it for free as a bonus action. And when we do, we can now target 2 creatures with it. And if they happen to be frightened, whether it's from Decisive Edict or some other ability, we now can force them to automatically fail the save against command by having that queued up. Again, interesting concept, not my favorite sorcerer. Yeah, packing magic spells do come back again on a short rest, but that is something I also see. I would have probably liked more short or long rest recharge stuff on the warlock just because of the fact that it's a short rest and limited spell slots because of it. But either way, that's the entirety of the Unearthed Arcana that was released today. Command does still increase in targets for upcasting, so that does give you some benefits there. Yeah, because command you'd be hitting a ton of people with it. So honestly, a little bit shorter than I thought, but we didn't have any crazy mechanics or honestly, we didn't really have a lot of nitpicks or things to go in. Most of the stuff is solid here. Anything could probably play at the table just fine. Some aspects and some subclasses seem a little bit stronger than others. I'm going to say I think the Defiled, Sorcerer, and the Gladiator are stronger overall in theme, I think, potentially. as well as viability through the Circle of Preservation Druid and the hell is it? God King, Sorcerer-king patron. But I don't know. I want you guys to let me know what you think down in the comments. Yeah. I don't know. I think I'm just checking because I hear some noises and there's dogs are barking, so I just want to make sure nothing's happening at my house here. Oh, do we have guests already? Oh, yeah, I guess so. So anyway, Ted, I'm seeing arguments that the sorcerer subclasses encourages one encounter days with a feature that lets it waste its hit dice. Do you agree? Well, remember in 2024, you get all of your hit dice back on a long rest. In 2014, you got half of your expended hit dice back on a short rest, or sorry, on a long rest rather. In 2024, you get all of your expended hit dice back on a long rest. So that's something to consider for mechanics to let you expend your hit dice. So that definitely helps, I'd say. If you're going to be expending hit dice, at least you're going to get them all back. So you can feel free to be a little more bold with your hit dice expenditure choices. Granted, it will make it so you don't have the capability to heal on a short rest. And as, you may have people in your party that benefit from a short rest, fighter or a warlock. But yeah, I'm not sure overall on this. So I would say I don't necessarily think what was the wording you used? Encourages one encounter days. I think it's another mechanic. Hit dice are a resource you can expend, but they're one that you can expend, and you just have to be mindful of how you do it. So the druid was the least interesting to me. The warlock makes me think Death Knight. Yeah, honestly, I think to me the warlock is the least interesting. Um, I also don't, like I said, I don't think that the druid is particularly interesting to me either. It's fine in and of its own right, and it kind of works as a sort of pseudo healer focused druid, not 100% healer, but still pretty solid. But I do think Gladiator Fighter and Defiled Sorcerer are the two strong standout options for me with interesting capabilities and unique. I think what also, like I said, helps is hey, you're going to be doing this thing anyway. You also now, if you're going to do the thing you were probably going to do anyway, also get an additional effect tacked onto it. The druid is just the Twilight Cleric, I guess, to some degree. So I don't know. I'm a fan of the fact that we're getting so many Unearthed Arcanas. That's probably the biggest takeaway I have from this is that, like, I feel like, and this is something kind of just interesting for me from a content creation standpoint. I used to, back in the day, we used to wait for like the month to click around because it was basically a guarantee that every month a new Unearthed Arcana was going to come out. And then we kind of got into like weirder times as time went on where we wouldn't really know. We couldn't really bank on a month to month schedule. The Unearthed Arcana would just come out when the Unearthed Arcana came out, and they weren't necessarily on like a 1 month time frame. With whatever's been happening lately, we are getting Unearthed Arcana once a month. So, I'm going to say from now on, unless we hear something different very specifically, around the 20th of a given month, be on the lookout for a new Unearthed Arcana to drop, because it seems like the team out there is putting out new and interesting subclass options. And who knows, we've only seen subclasses. We might get to see in future Unearthed Arcanas things like species, feats, spells. I mean, I guess we have seen to some degree spells and feats with like the Eberron stuff, but Yeah, I'm very excited to see where this is going, and the fact that they're willing to go back and revisit and relook at things like, hey, let's go back and look at the Faerun stuff. Now that's probably going to be again for the Faerun book, but hey, let's revisit the Scion, which is a wild thing that we never thought would happen because that was basically killed very early on in 5e's career, the concept of a psionic specific class. Hey, let's touch on things, and we're not going to call it Dark Sun, but we all can kind of read between the lines that it is Dark Sun. We had all those horror subclasses. Could that be something new tied to Barovia that we don't know that's coming out, or some other horror setting? The only thing they could do now that could endear me more to them than the concept of releasing new content like this every month was if they brought back the concept of trying to revise the Ranger yet again. Another revised Ranger. Because again, if you followed along back in the day, Revised Ranger, we had 2 or 3 Unearthed Arcanas where the whole purpose of the Unearthed Arcana was to try to fix the 2014 Ranger. Now, they ultimately landed and said it was fine, but if it was fine, they wouldn't have dedicated resources and time to putting out ways to fix the Ranger. But they did. So they knew something was off back in the day. And I don't know if it was just management changes or what have you, that they just sort of let things go. But yeah, maybe we can get the Ranger. I don't know how many. The revised Ranger 3.0. We'll call it something like that. You know what I mean? They tried. They knew there was something. They didn't quite land on anything specifically. They had one that had their hit dice, I think, was 2d6 or something like that, which is a wild concept to have 2 dice as your hit die. But that was something. Think about all these effects that we're talking about now where you could spend hit die. If each level gave you 2d6 hit die, that'd be wild. Oh, Blue Gray, I'm on Twitch all the time. I stream anytime I'm streaming on YouTube, I'm pretty much streaming on Twitch. So I'm on here over on Twitch as well as on YouTube, probably 3-4 times a week. Tasha's Cauldron 2.0, Arcane Boogaloo. Yeah, maybe. Just make the Ranger a fighter subclass. That's an option as well. I don't think Gladiator's a background anymore. No, it's not. So that could, explain some of the disparity of the changes there. We need another Tasha's Rangers update. Yeah, something similar. That's what I mean with the... So I have a 2024 Ranger update that I made. And I actually don't think I've ever released it anywhere officially. So maybe if I get enough comments from you guys on the video, I will go ahead and... I don't know if I'll release it in like a printed format. Maybe I will. But I think I might at the very least be willing to come online and chat about it and showcase it. But my Ranger, because I had done a Ranger revision back in the day, and my whole way to fix the Ranger back in 2014 was to have it be the pet class, and that it got an animal companion no matter what, similar to how moon druids, like all druids can turn into animals, but a moon druid can be turned into better versions of animals. The concept that I had for 2014 was that all Rangers got an animal companion. Beastmaster Rangers got a better animal companion, right? That was the concept. Shockingly to me, many of you came back at that time and said, I don't want to manage a pet. I don't want that anymore. So that made me have to go back to the drawing board and think about this extensively. So that's how I landed on my 2024 Ranger fix, which is based on the warlock progression, where you have essentially the concept of, I think I called them natural manifestations, which is essentially an eldritch invocation, but something along those lines. So you're kind of following that sort of progression for what your core capabilities are. You're still having traditional spellcasting, not warlock style spellcasting, and you don't have as many invocations as a warlock would have. But that's part of how you can customize how you make your Ranger unique. You have options to do stuff for exploration. You have options if you want to focus on the pet aspect of stuff, if you want to focus on Hunter's Mark or Ensnaring Strike or boosting different things like that. I gave it a lot of capabilities to do stuff like that as well. So Baldur's Gate 3 Ranger is solid. I think part of the reason that it does so well, especially with the Beastmaster side of things, is because they just give the animal a whole stat block in its own turn. I want a pet subclass for every class. That's not uncommon, just like how I think every class should have a dragon-based subclass. Every class should have a subclass based around a creature type, right? An ooze-based subclass for everyone, a beast-based subclass, and so on. Let's see. Calling it now, we're getting a Dark Sun book in 2026. Hopefully they can modernize it without going too far and having the anti-woke mob crying for blood. I don't know if we'll ever officially release a Dark Sun book. We might get these subclasses in some other book potentially, but I don't know if they're ever gonna put themselves. Dark Sun has, a lot of stuff that's problematic with it, a lot of dangerous territory to tread from Wizards of the Coast. So I imagine if they can get away with not having to do that, that's what their plan will be. But yeah, I don't know. Dark Sun was a campaign setting back in the day, just like Faerun, just like Eberron, just like all that stuff. So Dark Sun was another campaign setting. But I don't know. What about in a beer campaign setting? That would be interesting. I haven't really touched too much on a beer since I post 4th edition, so I think they did actually redo Dark Sun in 4th edition, didn't they? Pretty sure Dark Sun had I'm pretty sure I remember reading 4th edition comic books that were Dark Sun based. But I don't know. There's other campaign settings that I wouldn't mind seeing make a comeback as well. Like Mystara would be another one that I feel like is often forgotten. Ghost Walk, another campaign setting often forgotten. So I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, I know who you meant, Caden. But it's headed by James Wyatt, which is why I think we can see Dark Sun. Maybe, yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I'm curious to see where this goes because we don't have anything really for 2026. We know nothing about next year's release schedule. I just want to apologize for not putting out as much content. I was putting up content leading to going to Gen Con and a little bit of content while I was at Gen Con. And I got back and I kind of just been slacking off. And then this is a good way to kick me back into gear to get stuff out there. But I have stuff I want to work on. I want to make a couple videos. I played a first Shadow Dark game at Gen Con. I want to talk about that. I have this book here, The Book of Dragons. This book is fantastic. This is everything I wanted in the Draconomicon or in Fizzbands to be, where you have like all sorts of interesting stuff showcasing, different aspects of different kinds of dragons. We have anatomy of dragons, all sorts of very interesting information. This book is absolutely fantastic. So I want to talk about this book. We have a lot of interesting third-party content got dropped on D&D Beyond, right? Like the Cthulhu stuff and whatever else. I want to talk about all that. So, a lot of interesting stuff to work on. And what else? I guess I'll say that tonight at around, God, is it going to be 9 or 10 p.m. Eastern time, I will be live on Captain Robert's channel. Continuing in our Vecna Eve of Ruin campaign. I'm playing Theodore the Orange, my wizard. I'll be there for that. And then I think right after that, we're going to jump into playing some more Guild Wars. Yeah, there were some big, I know we'd heard about this Dragonlance Collector's Edition and the Lorwyn Shadowmoor Sourcebook. I'm not going to count any of that till we see an actual announcement. I know the crochet book is coming, right? The Book of Patterns. That one we do know is coming. We're getting Tyranny of Dragons Legendary Edition it's a Beetle and Grimm product. So it's still Tyranny of Dragons. It's just in the box set from Beetle and Grimm, which is fine. Beetle and Grimm products are phenomenal. I love their products. But it's, you know, it's a premium high-end product. So, Cartor would be another one that people kind of forgot about. And yeah, I saw there were some interesting Critical Role announcements that came out. That campaign 4 is going to be West Marches, which is a choice. In a world where you just launched Daggerheart, your own campaign system, and then you're going to gear up for your campaign 4, and you're not going to run your own system, I think is an interesting choice. I know they said they're going to do Daggerheart like one-shots and stuff, but like you wrote a whole system. Why would you not run the game, your new campaign, in that system? 2024 5e as well. Yeah, I know. It's a choice. So, yeah, but I feel like Brendan could learn Daggerheart if he really wanted to. There's so much stuff going on. We could probably just do like a 6-hour live stream where you guys just tell me, hey, did you see this thing? And then we go and comment on that. And who knows? Maybe at one point, maybe we'll do that one of these days. We'll just take some time, carve out a time slot and say, all right, suggest TED News Hour. And you guys just pop in and throw me, hey, did you see this? And then I go and comment on what I think about that as we read it out. But yeah. So anyway, we'll see. We'll see. We got a lot of stuff going on. A lot of content to work on, a lot of things to see. So my wife just got home with the boys, and it looks like my sister-in-law is here with my niece and nephew. So I should probably go hang out with them. But more importantly, my D&D family, like regular routine Thursday night D&D game, starts in about 30 minutes, and I haven't prepped anything for it, so I should probably go do that. So yeah. Anyway, let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below. I'll see you all next time or later here live on YouTube and Twitch if you're hanging around then. So have a good time, everyone. I'll see you later.